The public can access this meeting via WebEx technology. The meeting of the Fox Hills School Building Committee will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The meeting number tonight is 2374152007. Password is Burlington with a capital B. John on the phone, can you clarify it's Mr. Lyons, correct? Just trying to determine if we have a Mr. Lyons, or if that is you on the app, it's him. Okay, beautiful, thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, we have a quorum currently, but Bob needs to go to the select board meeting, so I'm gonna quickly run through voting items on the agenda, and then we'll jump to public comment fourth. So the first agenda item is approval of the March 19th minutes.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 19th, 2024. Sorry, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Monaco,
Aye.
Ms. Simon,
Aye.
Mr. Brooks,
Aye.
Dr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. Kasha,
Yes.
Mr. Cuna,
Yes.
Ms. Priest,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
I didn't gain anybody, right? And I vote aye. It's 800. Okay, so jumping through the presentation, Andrea.
On top there.
There you go. Yeah, just go to the, I can speak to it if you want. I think it is. Did Steve pop on or? No. I think it's a regular Norm Whittier invoice is the first item.
This is the commitment, and then we have the invoices, yep.
Okay, yep. We need to vote on them individually, right? Or separate, Dorm Whittier versus Danisco?
Yeah, if you could do the Dorm Whittier invoice, you can do the
Okay.
Danisco as a group.
Okay.
Yep.
No, this is the school building, the Fox Hill and BHS are separate. Do you have a motion to approve the Dorn Whittier invoice number 19 in the amount of $19,652.50?
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? Ms. Monaco,
Aye.
Ms. Simon,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks,
Aye.
Dr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. Kasha,
Yes.
Mr. Cuna,
Yes.
Mrs. Priest,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
just checking. No one else joined. Okay, and I vote aye, so 800 again. And then we have 4 Danisco invoices, one for $58,333, one for the hydrology study for $4,020.50, with the roofing and destructive testing for $6,380, and traffic study in the amount of $3,222.67.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Monaco,
Aye.
Ms. Simon,
Aye.
Mr. Brooks,
Aye.
Dr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. Kasha,
Yes.
Mr. Cuna,
Yes.
Ms. Priest,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
I vote aye, 800. All right, and then the commitments. Steve, I see you on there. Do you want to just briefly talk about this? We're going out of order because we're going to lose the quorum.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
I apologize, one, not being there, and two, kind of being in spotty coverage, but I'll do the best I can. Yeah, so just to introduce this topic, as you know, we've been working with the town since originally under contract close to a year and a half or so ago. Our contract included a base amount that included an estimated amount of hours over the course of that time, and our estimate is close to being exhausted at this point. We had started a process several weeks ago with Nicole just to let her know and introduce the topic and try to get as much information out as possible to provide backup as the amendment that's presented to you this evening. So we have updated our estimate through the duration of feasibility and schematic, and we think it's a conservative estimate to get us through the remainder of that project phase. Just one thing, it is within the original appropriation for feasibility study. So there's no request for additional feasibility study money above the original appropriation. Included in the breakdown for Ms. Kasha and others was a total accounting of hours of our project team to date. And I'm happy to answer any questions about those if required, but the long and short is that we've been spending more time than we had originally estimated, just between the number of project meetings, documentation for project record, et cetera. So that's a brief introduction. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions from the committee.
Mr. Brooks.
This question's for Ms. Kasha. How close are we to the original ceiling of this contract or the allotted apportionment with this funding increase?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
How close are we to the funding ceiling for this apportionment with this increase?
I believe we have remaining in the article about 130,000. So this would be this is 98,000. So we're getting pretty close.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nicole, this is Eric. Is the design side of this a fixed cost?
I mean, so even the base contract was a not to exceed at 396,715. So this is a 25% increase to that.
So again, to Mr. Brooks's point, this would leave us roughly about a $35,000 balance in the $1.5 million appropriation. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly.
That's correct.
And are all of these costs eventually, if the project gets funded and we move forward, the feasibility is partly reimbursable?
I'm sorry, is what reimbursable?
The $1.5 million, if the project moves forward and is funded, does MSBA consider the feasibility part of the reimbursable cost?
Yes.
Yes.
My understanding is feasibility is reimbursable whether or not the project gets funded as well, right?
That's correct.
This is Donna, that's correct.
That is correct?
Yes.
All right, so, Madam Chair, do you need a motion?
So do.
Again, I'll move that we amend the agreement with Doran Whittier in the amount of $98,800 from the original cost. So we add $98,800 to the Doran Whittier feasibility contract.
Anyone want to second the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mrs. Monaco?
Yeah, I'd like more of an explanation on this.
Mr. Brooks?
Mr. Chair, that's okay?
Oh, sure. Yep, go ahead.
Yes, I'll do the best I can. I think it was a request for additional information. The terms of our contract, or the way we estimate time, is it's essentially a time and material contract for the owner's project manager, where the designer's contract is a lump sum payable per phase of the project. And so we do the best we can to estimate what we think the hours are going to be. Again, this is before we've really had the first meeting with you all. But of course, we've been working on MSBA contracts for quite a while. So we try to do the best we can to estimate the amount of time from each of our project team members over the course of what will be close to 2 years. So it's not uncommon for that to not be entirely accurate down to the hour. So we've just been expending probably over the last few months, tracking against what we thought the monthly drawdown would be, a little bit over that. And that's just accumulated over the past few months to put us in the position we are now. So the estimate we put together in front of you is for primarily Andrea's time, my time, Mike Burton's time as principal in charge of the project, mostly surrounded the next submittal date to the MSBA, which is a big one for the project scope and budget agreement. Of course, we've got some estimating time in there too through one of our sub-consultants. But if there's a more direct request for specific information, I'll try to answer that as well.
Mr. Brooks.
Steve, I'm pretty sure you don't have this information here, but if you could give us the, just how far we're over the burn rate, so we can understand what the remaining funds we have, what our runway is.
Yep, I do have that, and I can provide that.
Thank you.
Nicole has reviewed it.
Correct, Nicole?
Yes.
Mr. Kuna, I think, was next.
This is questions for Steve through the chair. So, Steve, if I could just understand it correctly, you guys had assumed you all being Doran Whittier roughly in some months 186, sometimes 106 hours. But in some cases, we're seeing 260, 296, 225 hours. Is that what I'm reading correctly in some of your documents?
For a couple of months there, we were, and it was around the time of the PDP and PSR submissions. So you're correct, Bob, where in the beginning where we had estimates again across all the project team members, we were below that for a couple of months as the project spun up. But then once all the meetings and other deliverables were kind of stacked on top of each other for a short period of time, the actual time compared to the estimated time was exceeded for those few months.
And just to follow up, if I may. So Steve, does that mean moving forward, again, I saw the calculations, but are we assuming that we would go back down to more anticipated rates, or are we still assuming a higher, a higher monthly allotment?
No, based on our updated forecast, we're probably at or slightly below. Certainly where we've been the past few months around the December timeframe. But it's probably more close to the average burn rate, what we've seen on a typical month.
I think it was pretty better.
No, I was just trying to make sure, I think I was a little thrown off with the amending of the contract, excuse me. Speaking to the mic. So this is an amendment of the contract and not an invoice amendment? Just
Yeah,
for
their
my-
contract states like we cannot exceed
Exceed a certain
X
price.
dollar. Yeah, so this is an amendment.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Monica.
I'd like to move to table this till the next meeting for more information.
Steve, when?
And then through the chair, we're okay with that as well.
Okay. All right, do you want to withdraw? Or? Yeah. Okay.
Defer to the tabling of, so I will withdraw my motion.
Okay.
So it's time specific to the next meeting.
Until the next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
And I withdraw my second.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
No, thank you. I can appreciate the request for additional information. We'll work to get that in between and in preparation for the next meeting.
Also, I'm just wondering, Steve, if some of these additional costs are because we were investigating 8 options or 8+ options, and that was not something you could predict when you first put the contract together, an estimate. Is that accurate or no?
No, I would say it certainly goes into it. For my previous comment, the estimate at the beginning of the project it's just that, it's an estimate. So it's not anything in particular. It's kind of, a few of those issues kind of layered on top of each other, and a couple of those months, added up, and over time it starts to make a little bit of a difference. So it certainly went into it, Martha.
Thank you.
All right. Bob, I think you are free to go. We don't have anyone in the room. Is there anyone on the WebEx that would like to comment? You let Jeff handle that, yeah? The hard part, yeah. All right, thank you. All right, so next up we have a design update.
We're going to try things a little differently. I'm going to get to control Andrea's computer, so bear with me. Great, thank you, everyone. It's great to see everybody on such a beautiful day, finally. Just wanted to provide a design update. We are squarely in schematic design. We are about 4.5 weeks away from completing our cost estimate drawings that we'll submit to our estimators. So at this point, what we're doing is making sure that we are carrying the scope that we need to carry for budgeting purposes. We've had many meetings, and we have a lot of information that has been folded into the site design as well as the building design. So here's just an overview of the design phases and some of the milestones. So we complete our drawings for cost estimating over a month ahead of the MSBA submission because we submit the cost estimate as part of the total project budget to the MSBA. So our schematic design submission is scheduled to be June 27th. We'll have at that point all the information for the project scope and budget. Then design development would kick off after we receive the town's approval to proceed into design development. We anticipate that to be in the fall of this year. Some of the activities that happen during design development is when we actually officially submit to the planning board for site plan approval. And following that would be the NOI, the Conservation Commission review and approval as well. And once we have our approvals in place, also the design development phase will require an MSBA submission. Then we jump into construction documents, and during construction documents, there are 2 MSBA submissions before we submit the drawings for bid. And so we anticipate the bid period to be following probably December to January, February of 2026, and then construction to begin the spring of 2026, and building and site completion, fall of 2028. So that's it in a nutshell. When we last met, we provided a few different options and landed on an option G. And we had a G1, G2, G3, and we've had many meetings with folks from engineering, traffic, safe routes to school, exterior working group, and we had some really great feedback. So one of the goals, one of the really priorities is to separate all of the modes of transportation for security and safety for students walking to and from school, as well as those getting dropped off. So with this scheme, we have, let me go forward. We've separated the pedestrians would be walking along, and we would reuse pretty much the existing sidewalk path. Folks would come up Fox Hill, cross the street, and travel around the traffic circle to enter the school. The school orientation has not changed. The academic wing remains on the west side, so walkers would have direct access to classrooms. The traffic circle remains as what we had initially proposed, and with this scheme, we have a total separation of the automobile parent drop-off, which is with the blue line, van drop-off in the fuchsia lines, and then bus drop-off directly to the north of the traffic circle in a dedicated loop. This provides a total separation of vehicles during drop-off and pickup. Also distributes the number of kids entering and exiting the school during pickup and drop-off time. This really works well for many reasons. One of them also is the fact that this also provides a wonderful front yard for the school. This, as you enter the site, what you'll see first is this green area that can be developed into areas for stormwater. So potentially rain gardens and shallow bioretention basins. It also provides the ability to still maintain some fields, and we'll get into that in a second. Oh, sorry. Okay. PC, sorry. So I wanted to also talk a little bit about some of the site implications. The traffic circle heading up to the bus drop-off would require some selective removal of trees, but most of the tree removal is dedicated to this northwest corner. We would rebuild the existing trailhead. Those trails are really important, as we heard from the folks from the science curriculum, so that would be part of the project. What we're also doing is looking into geothermal wells. So since we last met, we had a test well drilled back during February vacation, and we received the test report late March, and it looks really favorable for geothermal wells. We were able to drill all the way down to the 500-foot mark, which is the goal, and hit bedrock at about 70 feet down. And bedrock is really great for conductivity. So it looks really promising. This is what we're proposing, and what we're showing right now is about 80 to 88 wells. The number of wells will be determined by probably at the next phase when equipment is selected and we know with more certainty what the loads are and the energy usage. But for now, based on other projects we've worked on, we've kind of proportionally allocated 80 to 88 wells. And that is really important because we want to carry that as part of the schematic design package for pricing. Okay, let's see. All right. When we last met, we talked a little bit about our meeting with the Parks and Rec Commission. Where we landed with that meeting is the desire to create a multi-purpose field. In this case, it is sized to be a full-size lacrosse field, and we also would have the ability to create 3 U10 soccer fields that could be striped as well in this area. At our last meeting, I think there was a discussion of the fact that while we cannot fit a full-size softball field, there's a desire to accommodate a smaller field, maybe for kickball, which is something that the school does use during recess. And so our next option is we looked at where this could go, and it really made sense to place a small kickball field to the northeast corner of the field's area. We would provide a fence around the backside, and this actually, the orientation then would would provide more protection in the wetlands in terms of balls rolling into those areas. So the orientation is then away from the wetlands and away from the vernal pool. So I guess we should, are there any questions regarding the site before I keep going?
Just for me and the faculty, and really appreciated kickball. That was basically a non-negotiable.
Yeah. Well,
And the students.
And the
yeah.
students, right, yeah.
When we say kickball size, would that be something that'd be able to be used by the town for like t-ball and softball, or is it smaller?
What do you think, Neil?
I think the bases will be the same, but we're not planning to skin the field at all. It'll just be grass. So you could play like t-ball for sure. You could play on it. You can play t-ball pretty much anywhere.
Perfect, thank you.
But I don't know about Little League. Probably you'd want a skinned infield or something like that.
Okay. All right, so we have also concurrently been looking at the building shape and some of the materials. Some of us had visited the Shea Memorial Elementary School in Amesbury with the school, and the materials used here were really viewed favorably by the folks that that we had discussed for building materials and massing with. So using Amesbury as inspiration, some of the materials are they're durable, so that's one of the goals, is to use durable materials that also have a natural feature to them. So for instance, most of the material at the Shea is brick. We often use brick for schools because of its durability, but it's also very warm material with colors that, there are many different colors that we can use, and there are different ways we can treat the brick. But additionally, we have materials such as this lighter gray area is a fiber cement panel, which is not as durable as brick in terms of items or things running into it. So we use this material a little bit up higher. And then we also use aluminum panel, which used to be a fairly inexpensive material, but now it seems to be one of the more expensive. So we use that material a little more sparingly to really provide some accents to the building. And then what's really a nice warm material is this material that creates a band around the top of this. This is the library over the entrance of the Shea. This is called phenolic, and it's a very dense plastic material that's also very sturdy and used often for exterior materials. And here are some close-ups of that material. This is the phenolic. And what we're looking to do is to provide a connectivity that moves from the outside to the inside. These are some images of buildings that, I think this one is downtown Boston. And I'm not quite sure where we got this one, but you can also see this gray material. This is not actually the fiber cement, but it provides kind of a nice color and a nice backdrop to the phenolic. So that's kind of the color scheme. But again, colors are going to be something that we're going to evaluate at a future phase. Right now, what we're trying to do is just kind of define the quantity, the percentage of certain materials on the building as we head into the end of schematic design. This building is not at all designed. It's going to take on, it's going to continue to evolve as we go through the design process, but certain aspects of it, such as the massing, which is how it is shaped, is really defined by the building program. So some of that is not going to change, but in terms of how the materials are put together and what it actually looks like will continue to change. What we do know is that we are going to use a good amount of masonry. That would be brick and potentially an architectural concrete block, which is also a very beautiful material, with some phenolic. And this is the fiber cement material. Again, usually comes in different shades of gray, some warmer, some cooler. So we'll be looking at those materials as we further along the design process. We've also been looking at windows and proportions of windows. These are just the start, again, of what we could imagine the classroom wing might look like. So we reviewed some of these with the exterior working group. It seems that study A, which has kind of the larger windows and more simple form, was really preferred to the smaller punched windows. So we're going to take that and study it further, but this is not to say this is the actual design. We're going to continue to look at this with potentially even looking at punched windows in a more simple form.
Can I ask a question why that was preferred? Just curious.
I think because, and we'll show you,
Okay.
The building is very long. And so when you start to look at the whole form, a lot of little pieces tends to get busy. But again, I think this is just the start of it. And it's because it's such a large building, we're kind of taking chunks of it and studying chunks of it and then applying it to the whole building. So we'll continue to present our thoughts as we develop those further. But totally open to comments that any of you might have as well.
Yeah. I'm wondering, I don't think it's time to make decisions about it, but do the different shapes and sizes of windows have an impact on whether or not we might do solar awnings? Or is that something where it doesn't matter what kind of windows we choose, we can still look at solar awnings later?
We could definitely do solar awnings regardless of the shape. Definitely when you start placing those and the windows are smaller and there are more of them, sometimes the texture is actually really nice, but in this case, we're going to continue to study. I'm not saying that this is not a good option. I think that it totally warrants further study. Keeping it simple, actually, as we're with the new energy with the energy requirements, actually having fewer perimeters around the window helps us. So the simple, larger window, it actually helps us energy-wise with regard, with respect to just the amount of infiltration that you need to kind of seal off. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Ms. Priest?
I know we've talked about this before, but trying to jog my memory. The windows opening, if you did this large design, would it be the lower window of the sets or would it be the upper windows? I know I was the victim of a window that was not designed properly in first grade, so Just kind of curious with the lower level windows.
So the windows are designed so they cannot open more than 4 inches. And we would definitely look at where those windows would open on the first floor, particularly if they're next to walkways, right? You don't want anybody. And I know that we've had a school where the principal was particularly concerned about these windows next to a play area and the kids running into them. So we're very careful about placing deciding which windows are actually operable. And in this case, we often like to make the smaller windows operable because the larger they are, the smaller amounts of open area you really get. I don't know if that really makes sense, but I don't know. Yeah. Does that help?
That does, thank you.
Okay. All right. Keep going then. Okay, so these windows were actually, they're inspired by projects that we've already completed. So here, that option A is very similar to windows that we used at the Harold Wyman School in Woburn. I think some of the folks here might have visited. What we also wanted to do is provide some images from the interior of classrooms so you can see how these might look from the inside. So this photo on the lower right-hand corner shows that we typically provide a sill height at about 30 to 32 inches because we often place bookcases along the window wall. Sometimes we move them up and down. It really kind of depends on the space and the overall orientation of the windows. So this is a little bit more linear horizontally of a window than the others that we'll show you. So these windows are punched windows, and these are pretty close to the windows that we used over at the Shea Memorial Elementary School in Amesbury. And you'll see from the interior photos, while they're not as wide and linear horizontally, they're taller. When the shades are up, it actually provides a great amount of daylight coming from up high. And again, these are at, the windowsill height is about 30 inches, 32. These are also punched windows where we vary the sizes, and sometimes we use metal panel, or we might use brick. In this case, the photo on the left is the Mariah Hastings Elementary School in Lexington, where we wanted to break up the heaviness of brick and treat the brick much like a panel. And we use different colored bricks to help the window area feel a little bit taller. So it's kind of a way that we can visually treat walls to kind of make an illusion that is not exactly true, right? So while the opening is really where the glass is, we're creating we're stretching your eyes vertically. And then this option has many different size windows and can be fun. In this case, the image on the left-hand side is from the DeBerry Swan Elementary School in Springfield. This is a combined school, so it's a fairly large school. A little bit busier, and when we presented this, many folks from the exterior working group thought it was a little bit too busy for our project. But again, I think that we can pull parts and pieces from any of these options, and we are not there yet with any of the designs. We're just really exploring and studying what can be. So looking at the overall building, we call this a massing study. It's really a white model, and what we're showing is really what is the building shaped like. Again, the building is really defined by the educational program, all the spaces inside. There might be ins and outs, and then some taller aspects, for instance, where we have the library by the entrance. We might want to pop up some of those roof lines to give it a little bit more emphasis. So when we start to place materials on it, it starts to really take shape and have a little bit more of a warm and welcoming feeling. And really the materials you use really do kind of help a building feel either more welcoming or not. So really just, again, early studies, would love to hear your feedback, welcome that. But we are going to continue to be looking at what this building is looking like, both from the inside and the out. Any questions or comments for the exterior?
Thanks, Vivian. On the picture that we're seeing right now, is there still talk of solar canopy over the parking? And if so, how does that then fit in as design decisions in relation to the other decisions made for the building?
The solar canopies would be far enough from the building. It doesn't really impact. And in this site design, it actually really, this design really does help actually screen the parking lot from the main entrance of the school. So as you enter on the traffic circle, what you'll see first is the green area in front of the school, and this would be well planted, and you'll see the academic portion and this really nice entrance to the school. And what then is screening, helping to screen the parking lot, is this alley or boulevard of trees. And so we actually think this site is really beneficial if we do want to install the solar canopies. And we actually reviewed this with the building inspector of buildings, because one of the aspects of this site is we really needed to define what the front yard is. And that was one of the considerations, because this the zoning regulations do not allow us to install canopies in the front yard without special permit. And so the inspector of buildings really considers Fox Hill as the front street, and so he would consider this parking lot area to be the side. So we believe that we can, and the planning board would work with us for a special permit for that. So that's actually really good news.
The front yard area, I think you had mentioned at one point for some stormwater retention, is it going to be more grass and then it happens to overflow, or is it going to be like a constant standing body of water potentially?
It cannot be a constant body of water. So what we also learned, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but we did meet with the DCM, and Board of Health is part of that group. And so it's been really helpful having these early meetings, because they're bringing stuff to our attention that we may not have even thought about, in that Board of Health actually has stormwater regulations, and they do not allow stormwater features that have standing water. So there's that consideration. So when we designed this with our civil engineer, we're going to be looking at shallow, and for this area to be probably mostly rain garden, so there wouldn't be any length of time where there would be water sitting and any danger to children.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. And here are just some, again, very preliminary views. And we are looking at the sunshades. I keep mixing those up. Sunshades, right, Neil? Sunshades. That are really, they're installed over the south-facing windows, and the orientation of our classrooms are perfect for that, because they really due south and work well. Oops, I'm stuck again. Okay. All right, and another view. This would be of the entrance right off of the bus drop-off, and what we want to do is develop this really nice open vestibule and entry area that is welcoming, because that's one of the first things you see as you drive up to the school. We will have areas where you'll see mostly brick, and again, this is a factor of these being classrooms. We have on opposite walls either a teaching wall that has whiteboards, or we'll have a storage wall that has sliding marker boards. So when we have these larger swaths of wall, we treat them with either, we can mix the color of brick, we could start looking at corbelling or recessing brick to give it some visual relief. And it really is, again, brick is, it's such a beautiful material. There's so many things we can do with it. And when we get further along in the design process, what we will do is have some mock-up boards that actually show some of these materials together that we can leave at the school for folks to actually see and touch. And then a view of the library. Again, we're looking at the roof, looking at how we can make this a really special entrance that can be seen from the main entrance of the school. And again, just starting to look at how much glass there is, where we might have phenolic that then ties back into brick, and how those might work together. Okay. Floor plan.
Vivian, hang on one
Oh, sorry.
question.
Yes.
Vivian, can you go back to the image that we were looking at earlier when I asked about the solar canopies?
Oh, this. Yep.
Yeah. So in the far upper right corner is the playground.
Yes.
What are the design maybe requirements that go into a playground design? I noticed that there's very little shade for the space. No trees in the middle of it
Yeah.
or anything. Is that a design thing? Is that a requirement thing?
So it is you know what, we're hearing more and more from schools that they would like shade structures. So very preliminarily, the way this is designed, let me just back up a few more slides. So what you see here in the purple is going to be a port-in-place rubber surfacing, so that is where the play structure, actual equipment would be located. So this equipment will be designed to be accessible, so that we're going to be looking at platforms and ramps, as well as other more challenging components to the playground. But these play structures can also incorporate roofs and some shade structures, so we would be looking at providing shade in some of these areas, and then underneath some of the platforms and the ramps, the kids could also find some shade. But around the playground, the hard surface, this is the beige area, that is going to be a painted painted asphalt surface, where we would paint lines for Foursquare, hopscotch, different games that the kids might raise. You know, they might come up with some ideas if the teachers could work with them to have some fun with the playground. But we've often, we've been asked in more recent projects to provide some sort of a shade structure, and so that can definitely be incorporated somewhere along this hard play surface area as well. So very, very early design, but we welcome any comments, suggestions that we can look into and actually scope out.
I just wonder, with the woods right next to the school at that spot, is there a way to incorporate more of nature play?
Yes. I think at our last presentation, we can definitely pull this again together for the next presentation. When we met with the science curriculum folks, we looked at different themes, different ways we can pull the nature into the play structure area as well. So definitely, that was one of the themes. All right, I'm gonna keep going. I'm sorry, this is so long. All right, it's just that we've been really working away. So again, the floor plans are pretty much set. We have not made any changes in terms of how spaces relate to each other, where they're located. We have been refining. We've refined the admin area. We're refining the music suite. We are also looking at refining the second floor, which would become the STEAM, kind of the STEM. This is the STE rooms, science, technology, engineering, to be designed in conjunction with the media center, and then the art room next to it would create a really great gallery space. And then here on the second floor, we would have an outdoor rooftop learning space. So what we are studying now is how some of the circulation works. We have really some great opportunities. We have 3 stairs on the building, so there is one on each end, and then there's one centrally located when you come in. So one of the features that we had discussed with the interior working group is how these spaces could be used by the community as during off hours. And I think there's a desire to close off the second floor from the first floor. If the community is using the gym, for instance, there might be you might want to keep folks really just on the first floor so they don't migrate upstairs to the second floor. So we're looking at how to provide the ability to close off the stairs, but still provide the visual connection and visual openness. So hoping at the next meeting, we'll be able to share some of those initial thoughts with you as well.
Through the chair. I've been wondering about shutting off the second floor for when, because we often use media centers for PTO meetings or whatever. So is that being considered by the groups that are looking at this?
Yeah, I think it's more providing the flexibility and ability to close off if needed. So no, there's definitely going to be the ability to use the second floor during non-school hours. We design it in a way that you provide the ways to egress out of all floors and all spaces at any given time for safety. Thanks, Martha. All right, I'm gonna keep, oh, Bob, you're back. All right, so we're also looking at designing preliminarily some of the key spaces, such as the media center. So we use some of the spaces that we've designed already for inspiration. This is the media center at the Shea Memorial Elementary School in Amesbury. A lot of glass that really provides a nice connection from the inside to the outside. A lot of natural wood is used. The library media center is one of the only spaces we usually provide carpet for. So we're going to be talking about finishes in upcoming meetings. We want them to be durable. We don't want to have to replace, we don't want Bob's team to have to replace things very often. But we also want to design a space that's warm and, again, welcoming for the kids. We know that kids like to sit on the floor. So, again, in the library, it really does make sense. And we design libraries so that there are different areas of teaching and learning. We have some classrooms areas. We have open space just for kids to transition between maybe the lesson time and the checkout time. We also have areas for storytelling. And again, we'll be working with the librarian and with the school to kind of refine these spaces. This is the media center at the Mariah Hastings School in Lexington, and you can see even though we are so technology oriented, it's really nice to still have books. So one of the challenges in some of our other schools is to ask the librarian to please, call and go through your books. But I think in this case, what we're learning about Fox Hill is the way that the books are organized is by genre. So that's a little bit of a different way to organize the library. So it may look a little bit different in terms of how the stacks are working out, but that's something that we're going to be folding into the design for this library. So as we start to look at what it could potentially feel like for Fox Hill, we know that we want to bring in some high glass and bring in a good amount of windows so that we can get some natural daylight. And again, I think because the library is south-facing, there's going to be great opportunities where we can use the sunshades, and actually that will add interest to the exterior of the building, but also will be really useful in blocking some of the natural, the direct daylight and sunlight. We also started looking at the project areas and how those could be organized. This is One way is to provide some openings within the components that divide the project areas. Our project areas are organized so that there are 2 classrooms per project area, but the grades are really sharing 2 project areas. So you want to provide some connectivity, but also provide the space so small groups can work independently without bothering each other. And here's that. Mariah Hastings.
Chair. I visited a couple of schools with these project areas, and I think they're wonderful. And it may not be clear from this picture, but and if the teachers like this, that's more important. But it looks to me like there's a lot of open space that doesn't visually break off from the hallways. And so if you're trying to run a small group in an area where there's lots of visual connectivity to the hallway, then how disruptive is that when a kid walks by this space to go to the bathroom? So is that part of the conversation that you're having with the teachers and
with the school? Yeah. So there's definitely a balance, because you want to be able to collaborate with, say, your teachers across the hallway, right? Because you're in the same grade. But I think you really hit the nail. You want to provide a space that, while the teachers can see over, the kids may not be able to. So here at Mariah Hastings, it's organized a little bit differently so that teachers standing on one side cannot see down low, but they can certainly see their colleagues across the hallway. And you can see that this is definitely blocked so that the kids, it's a different way of treating the project areas. And I should also note that our project areas at Fox Hill are actually smaller than these, so they're going to be a little bit more intimate. These are pretty large. These are typically 3 classrooms per project area for these 2 projects. So definitely, we'll be looking at that, Martha.
Thank you. Yeah, and this second picture does have a more visually protective view. Thank you.
And what I do want to say is that for Fox Hill, we're going to have stacked lockers. The stacked lockers provide the ability to make them a little bit wider. You know, kids, I don't know how they get their backpacks in those little skinny lockers. So we talked about these being wide enough. They're a little bit deeper than the old single stacked lockers. There's always a challenge to winters. If it ever snows again, you know, the snowsuits, the boots, where they all go. So we've also been talking about how we can provide some storage maybe for boots and other paraphernalia that the kids use. So we've, again, just started looking at some potential options for these project areas. And option 1 really separates each of the project areas. So there's 2 distinct zones, right? There's one project area here, there's the corridor, and then the second project area. So it's really defined as kind of three zones. We have the ability to use different materials for the ceilings to provide some warmth. We know that we are going to have some storage cabinets above the lockers, really great ample storage for teachers. We know that we're going to use some natural wood. And more importantly, what we're looking at is providing a clear story, transom windows kind of all the way across, so that we could share some daylight from the classroom, bring some natural light into the project areas. What we're also doing is looking at providing a space, an alcove in the project areas for the charging carts for the devices, and that provides a little bit more space inside the classroom for teaching. So this is option 1 with a nice warm ceiling. Option 2 treats 2 project areas pretty much as one. So this would kind of organize the 4 classrooms as one space, even though we have some separation between the project areas at the ground level. But when you walk through, you look at the ceiling, and that kind of is treated like one space. And this is another way to treat, similar to option 2, just kind of softening some of the hard lines. And then option 4, where we have the warmer ceiling. And this is actually potentially the direction we're going to lean towards, looking at developing further. Some of the folks, school department really liked the connection on the ceiling and providing a warm ceiling that then when you walk through from the corridor, you can kind of see, you can peek through and see the project area elements peeking through. So that's one way of wayfinding. All right, any questions on the interiors? No, all right. Okay, so we had a great meeting with the planning board last week. We went through some of the permitting requirements, and this is kind of what we're looking at this point, right? Article 4 is of the zoning is based on use regulations, and this has to do, the first item, it has to do with the solar canopies. So again, I think we've already talked about this. The fact is that the parking lot is considered a side yard, so it's very likely that this is going to be acceptable with a special permit. It still requires a special permit from the planning board. The item regarding the emergency generator, that is a use regulation, and we cannot, they cannot grant a special permit for that. It's just a use that's not allowed in the residential zone that the school is located in. So that is going to require a little bit further discussion. There's been discussion of potentially changing the language of the zoning to provide exceptions to school uses in residential, but again, we are going to continue to talk about that as we move into the next phase of design. For now, we're going to carry a generator. We're going to carry the gas for the generator as part of the schematic design so that we at least know we've got that in the budget. All right, and then Article 5 has to do with dimensional requirements. So what we do know is that the building is going to be really close to the 35-foot mark. The zoning regs limit us to 30 feet in a residential zone. We anticipate to be at least 35 feet to the tallest roof. This does not include the stairs that might bring you from the second floor to the roof, and it does not include the mechanical equipment and screening. Actually, the mechanical screening and equipment is exempt from the height. So we're going to, again, we've met also with the inspector of buildings. He provided some really good feedback, but this is one thing we do need to go to zoning for a variance. And then the last item at this point is historic. So what we do know is that the building was built in 1967, and based on that, the inspector of buildings said that it does not trigger a demolition delay, so we don't need to actually worry about that historically, but we will still meet with Burlington Historic just as a courtesy to kind of share the project with them.
Case snowflake schools trigger something?
Exactly, yeah.
Ms. Priest?
So I was letting you go through the thing. So in order to qualify for the Mass Save incentives, we need to have the diesel, but at this point in time, we're moving forward with gas only because of the current bylaws that are on the books, in hopes that we put an exception in place as a community.
Potentially, yeah.
And if we stay gas, then we're not eligible for the 1.3 million.
That
give or
is
take.
correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to actually bump into this a little bit earlier as well through the chair. When we presented the warrant article to replace the Francis Wyman generator, capital budget was really interested in us having a diesel generator just because of longevity. Bob, you said the generators are essentially equivalent in cost, so we could fit both underneath the warrant amount. But because Francis Wyman is also residential, we would need some sort of exception there as well. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct. All 6 of our schools are currently residential zoned, so it does not allow the permit for us to store diesel. So again, this bylaw, if it was to be amended or changed to allow that use, it would benefit us in the current request for the Francis Wyman, but also in the Fox Hill project as well.
And you mentioned right across the street, that's where the new fire station is, and that has a diesel generator?
Not directly across the street. It's a little bit up the road, on the same road, yes. Obviously, that is not in a residential zoned property, so they have a different exemption. They are also considered first responders as well, too. So it's an emergency generator, whereas for the school department, we are not under the same umbrella as first responders. So emergency has a different meaning. For us, it's a backup generator, as opposed to an emergency generator.
And this building's not going to, the new building's not going to serve as a shelter?
That requires a whole different permit and different requirements, showers and other things to make this building compliant for a shelter or a emergency center.
Okay, excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I did want to answer, we did have more in-depth discussion about the reason we need the generator in the first place, emergency lighting, so our pipes don't freeze, et cetera, because it will be mostly electric. We can potentially heat it for a while, but the team has looked into like putting a battery on every exit sign, and that was obviously cost prohibitive. So I thought that we have turned over every single rock. And so we're down to this last potential option, but I think it's a smart move to pretend we're going with gas for now. Gas is already piped there, so.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question. I know there was concerns from the neighborhood about the building height. So in relation to the 35 feet, the trees surrounding the property are much higher, so you wouldn't visually see it until you come down the rotary anyway?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then just adding on to the comments from planning, planning was very receptive to the things we brought up. Obviously, they can't give us a definitive answer, but they were certainly willing to work with us, and I definitely got that impression from our meeting. So
Yeah.
I think it's something we can work on for the planning board and the school committee to get this worked through.
That it? All right. So again, we've had many meetings, really great, and planning board was really actually, it was a great meeting, and their designee has been so instrumental in pushing the site plan forward. So I think that's been a really valuable aspect to this process. We do have some upcoming meetings that we are planning on scheduling. We're working on the stormwater design at this point. So when we have a draft, which is coming up soon, we would love to meet with Public Works, Engineering, and Conservation. We will be scheduling a sustainability meeting soon. While we have some results for the geothermal well, we're looking at potentially a cistern to be located within the site at this point, where it actually helps us with the stormwater design of the school. But at this point, we're trying to determine and working with other folks to see whether it makes sense to use that for gray water for flushing within the school or irrigation. So that's something that we need to continue the discussion on. Let's see. And then again, we'd like to follow up with public safety with regard to now our site plan, just to make sure everyone is comfortable with it. We are developing signage and refining it as we speak. So while we have the layout, it's going to continue to be designed. And that is it.
The next on the presentation says planning zoning update, but we did that already, right? Yeah, okay.
To go forward. There you go.
So this was the last meeting that we had scheduled on the agenda today. So what I did was pulled the Burlington schedule and tried to coordinate dates that most parties were available to attend. And this is where we ended up with potential upcoming meetings to be scheduled, with some information in there of where Danisco was trying to hit some deadlines and where we do need to present. We do absolutely need to meet on June 10th We will at that point have the cost estimate reconciliation and some VE items to present. And then we would like to get a vote, once the committee has a chance to look over those documents, to submit to the MSBA on the June 27th deadline.
Yeah, and we moved the community meeting later in the year so that we would have some dollar values to present to the community. Felt like that was the most important item. And so that is in June. There was absolutely nothing on the Burlington Town calendar on that day. So we'll be marching towards that. Yeah. Assignment.
So there's 2 Monday meetings. Did you check to see if they were conflicting with the select board night? Because we have a couple of important members who can't come when it's the night of the select board meeting. The 10th and the 24th. Do they meet on the 2nd and the 4th Monday? Does anyone know?
The dates that I pulled were clear of select board and school committee.
Oh, so you looked on
Yeah.
like the town calendar?
Yes, I
Great.
pulled the Burlington Town
Thank you.
calendar.
Perfect.
Yes.
And can you clarify, is Tuesday, May 20th, Monday, May 20th, or Tuesday, May 21st?
Oh,
Probably the Tuesday.
probably the Tuesday date. I can't look on the calendar. Let's see.
Through the chair, if I may add.
Yeah.
According to the town's calendar, Select Board is meeting on June 10th. 24th, no, but June 10th, yes. So that may have been added afterwards, I'm not sure.
Okay, we can go back and look at those.
So Select Board on the calendar is June 10th, and the following week, June 17th.
Okay. The 17th isn't an actual meeting on here, so that's okay.
Yeah, just-
No, we'll just keep this. May 20th. Bob, was there anything on May 20th?
It's a backup day for a town meeting.
I think we meant to do Tuesday.
Which one? Third
So-
one?
The Select Board is meeting May 20th, but it is also a backup day for town meeting.
Well, the 20th, but the
The May
21st is also a backup town meeting day? No, okay. So I think this was intended to be the 21st.
So could we do April 29th?
Yep.
And then Monday, May 21st?
Tuesday, May 21st.
Tuesday, May 21st.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll lock those 2 in for now,
Yeah.
and then figure out the June dates.
The 29th is a Monday. We skipped, the Passover is the 22nd and 23rd.
Oh, okay, so at the end of it.
Yeah, because the 30th is our school committee meeting.
Okay, good.
Okay. So we'll have 2 scheduled.
Yeah, and we just need something prior to the community meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, just to add, my Google says that Passover is April 22nd through April 30th.
Yeah, I think Martha.
There is a special day at the end for the most observant Jews, but most observances are on the first and the second night. So I think that's probably okay.
I mean, as long as we're throwing them out, that is the Holy Week for Orthodox Christians, so it's the whole week.
The week of the 22nd you're talking about.
No, the week of the 29th.
The following week? Okay, we can go back to the table on that.
Okay. Dawn Whittier will go back to the calendars.
Yeah, I'll talk to Steve.
Run it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We already did the invoices. All right, so other topics, we will be doing a school committee reorganization tomorrow, and that will include reorganization, a vote of the members of this building committee and the high school building committee, so that will happen tomorrow. So prior to the next meeting, which may be in April, some point. Do we have any more public comment? No, all right.
Nope.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Good night. Thank you all.